You know those days when everything seems to go wrong? Well, that's exactly how Blair felt. The wind was slicing through the Oklahoma fields as if it were angry, tossing rain back and forth and bending the wheat like paper. The sky seemed to be at war, thunder crashing above, making the old farmhouse shake as if it were made of cardboard. The house was falling apart, but it stood firm, just like its owner. Inside, in the dark kitchen, Blair Cole sat in silence. He held an old coffee mug, the kind with a chip on the edge. In front of him, an open envelope from the bank. And inside, the worst kind of news. Final notice: we will take your farm. It was as if someone had kicked the ground out from under him. But Blair didn't even have the strength to be angry. He just sat there, still, staring at nothing. Suddenly, boom! A deafening noise cut through the sky. But wait, that wasn't thunder. It was something different, lower, closer, stranger. Blair ran to the door, even as the rain lashed against his face. And there it was, a small plane, crashed in the middle of the cornfield. Smoke rising, pieces scattered. He didn't think twice and ran straight toward it. In the midst of the wreckage, he found someone, a woman, injured, soaked, and half-conscious, but alive. "Hey, are you okay?" he shouted, trying to pull her out. She murmured something, opened her eyes with difficulty, and passed out in his arms. Blair took the stranger to his house, took care of her wounds, and stayed up all night, watching over her. Who was she? What was she doing there? And why hadn't anyone come after her? The next day, she woke up. With her eyes still a little lost, she said her name. Amelia. Amelia Price. And then, Blair's eyes went wide. She wasn't just any woman. She was Amelia Price, the millionaire pilot who made headlines, owner of one of the biggest airlines in the country. But what was a rich and famous woman doing alone in a plane, flying in the middle of a storm, with no one around? Well, that's where the story changes completely. Because it wasn't just Amelia's life that Blair saved that night. She also came to change his life. But this is just a beginning. "Hey, hey!" Blair shouted, shaking her shoulder. "Can you hear me?" She groaned softly, almost fading out. Blair carefully pulled her, trying not to disturb her wounded leg too much. But the second he shifted her weight, she screamed, a pain so intense it seemed to slice through the rain. The metal was deep, very deep. Blair swallowed hard. He could feel it scraping against her bone. My God! The smoke was getting darker. The fire could explode at any moment. He dragged her as fast as he could away from the wreckage, leaving a trail of blood in the mud. Reaching a large tree, he laid her down gently and pulled the phone from his pocket with trembling hands.
Hello? This is an emergency. Blair Cole speaking. County Road 13, Southeast Field. A plane crashed on my farm. The pilot is alive but seriously injured. I need help now. On the other side, the dispatcher responded, "Sir, we're under a storm alert in your area. The rescue teams are delayed." "She's bleeding a lot," Blair interrupted. "Her leg is impaled and the plane could explode. We'll send an ambulance as soon as possible, but the roads are closed and the helicopter can't fly in this weather." Blair hung up before hearing the rest. There was no time to wait. He looked at the unconscious woman. The rain was dripping down his face. Damn. He opened the first aid kit. Her leg was in bad shape. The metal was piercing deep into the muscle. Every time she moved, even a little, she let out a groan of pain. He knew what he had to do, and just thinking about it made his heart freeze. But it was that, or she was going to die there. He knelt beside her, took a deep breath, whispered, even though he knew she wasn't hearing, "Stay with me, okay? I'm going to have to take this out. You're losing too much blood." She groaned weakly, but squeezed his hand. It was almost like she was saying, "Go ahead." Blair tried to clean as much as he could with the little he had. His hands were shaking so badly that they could hardly grip the piece of metal. A lightning bolt split the sky. 1, 2, 3, he yelled, pulling the metal out in one motion. The woman screamed loudly. Blood gushed. Blair pressed the cloth tightly. He ripped his own shirt to make a bandage, applying all his weight to hold it in place. "Stay with me," he pleaded. "Don't pass out now. Don't give up on me, please." She breathed weakly, but she was still there, alive. Behind them, the plane crackled. The fire was rising higher and higher. But there, on the wet ground, covered in mud and blood, Blair held that woman in his arms, a complete stranger. And even though he didn't understand why, for the first time in years, he felt something different. Hope. Something inside him told him, this isn't over yet. And all of this started with a single notification. The storm raged furiously outside, but now Blair didn't care. He just wanted to keep that woman alive until help arrived. After holding the bandage in place for a long time, the bleeding finally started to slow. She was pale, sweaty, but breathing, slowly, but she was there. He sat on the ground, exhausted, with her resting in his lap. The rain drummed against the oak leaves like a drum. The smell of smoke still lingered from the burning plane, but now the worst was over, at least for now. Suddenly, she moved. Very slowly, as if waking from a nightmare. She opened her eyes with difficulty and looked at him, frightened. "Calm, it's okay," Blair said, trying to sound confident. "You crashed here on my farm. I pulled you out of the plane. You're safe." She tried to say something, but could barely form a sentence. So he leaned in closer. "What's your name?" She took a deep breath. Her voice came out almost as a whisper. "Amelia. Amelia Price." Blair froze. That name, he knew it. It was impossible not to know. Amelia Price, the millionaire pilot, one of the wealthiest women in the country, owner of one of the largest airlines, always appearing on TV, in magazines, on news websites.
But what was a woman like her doing there, alone, in a small plane, in the middle of a storm? No security? No one around? Before he could ask, her eyes closed again. She was still too weak to speak. Blair grabbed his phone and tried again. This time, the call went straight to voicemail. No signal. He cursed under his breath and looked at the road, dark, empty, flooded with water. No one would be coming for now. So the only thing he could do was take care of her. A few hours later, Blair carried Amelia back to the house in his arms. Every step in the mud was heavy, but he couldn't leave her there. He laid her on the couch, covered her with a blanket, and lit the fireplace. The old farmhouse had never felt as important as it did now. Every second, he checked if she was still breathing. Meanwhile, he thought, why was she here? Running from what? And why does no one know about this? His phone vibrated. One notification. Urgent, businesswoman Amelia Price's plane disappears during private flight in storm. Blair stood frozen, reading that 3 times. The entire world was now searching for her. No one knew where she was, but he did. She was right there, in his living room, in his rundown farmhouse, in the arms of a man who was about to lose everything. And unknowingly, maybe she was his only chance to change his life. Mas o que Blair ainda não sabia é que Amelia não estava apenas ferida. She was being hunted. And that accident, maybe it wasn't an accident at all. That morning, the rain had already cleared, but the sky was still gray. Blair woke up on the couch, the sound of distant thunder, and his heart racing. For a moment, he thought it had all been a dream. But no, the woman was still there. Amelia Price, for real. Breathing softly, asleep on his couch with the makeshift bandage on her leg. Blair slowly got up, trying not to wake her. He went to the window. Nothing. No cars on the road, no helicopters in the sky, no sign of rescue. It was as if the world still didn't know she was there. He grabbed his phone and tried again. No signal, no bars. He huffed, frustrated. He would have to find a way to leave and get help. But how could he leave Amelia alone? She could barely keep her eyes open. And that's when something strange happened. While looking for a blanket in the closet, he heard a noise outside. An engine. Blair froze. He slowly opened the door and peeked outside. A black car, big dark windows, was parked at the entrance of the farm. No one was getting out, no headlights on. It was just there, standing still. Blair squinted. That wasn't an ambulance. It wasn't the police, not even a neighbor's truck. He stepped off the porch slowly, flashlight in hand. The car remained there, silent, intimidating. "Is anyone there?" he shouted. Nothing. Then, suddenly, the car revved up and sped off, skidding on the wet road until it disappeared around the corner. Blair went back inside, chilled to the bone. When he entered, he found Amelia awake, struggling to get up with great effort. "Hey, easy, you can't," he said, rushing to help her. But she grabbed his arm tightly, even though she was weak. "They know," she murmured, eyes filled with fear. "They know I'm alive." "Who?" She looked at him and answered, struggling to speak. "People who want to silence me." Blair felt a chill run up his spine. "That wasn't an accident, was it?" he asked. Amelia took a deep breath, wincing in pain, but shook her head. "No, that was an attempt on my life." Amelia told him everything. Days before, she discovered that someone very powerful within her own company was embezzling millions of dollars, dirty money, illegal schemes with politicians and transport contracts. She tried to report it, but soon the warnings started, then the threats, and finally a final warning. "If you don't shut up, we'll get you out of the way." So she took a small plane and ran. No pilot, no security, no one. Just her, trying to disappear. But they followed her. They shot down the plane in the middle of nowhere. But she survived. And now she was in the middle of a forgotten farm in Oklahoma, protected by a farmer who had no idea what he was about to face. Blair took a deep breath. He knew he was getting involved in something big, something dangerous. But he wasn't going to abandon Amelia. "You're safe here," he said, grabbing the old shotgun from his father that hung on the wall. "With me, no one will touch you." She looked at him, still in pain, but now with something different in her eyes: trust. But what they didn't know was that someone had already entered the property that night and was watching from afar in the dark, waiting for the right moment to strike. Night fell again. The sky was still heavy, but the rain had taken a break. Blair locked the windows, turned off all the lights, and secured the front door with the old iron lock. Every creak of the house's wood sounded louder than usual. Amelia slept on the couch, covered by a thick blanket. Her fever was going up and down. The wound still hurt, but she was more stable. Blair walked around the house with the shotgun in hand. Something wasn't right. That black car visit, the fear in her eyes, the silence outside. Everything felt wrong, too quiet. Then he heard it. A crack, from outside, coming from the cornfield. He went to the window, but all he could see was darkness. Even with the lantern, nothing was visible except the silhouettes of the plants swaying in the wind. But someone was out there. He could feel it. Blair lit the lantern and stepped outside slowly, pointing it in the direction of the sound. With every step, the rustling of leaves mixed with the beat of his own heart. Crack. Another sound. Closer. He turned quickly, but saw nothing. One more step. And then a figure ran between the rows of corn. "Hey!" Blair shouted, running after it. But when he got there, All he saw were deep footprints in the mud and something on the ground. A watch, gold, expensive as hell. Blair picked it up carefully. This wasn't something from someone in the small town. This was way too expensive, too professional. He ran back to the house. Amelia was sitting up, pale. "Someone was here, weren't they?" she asked. Blair nodded and showed her the watch. She took it, recognizing it immediately. "It's from one of the security guards who worked for me, but he disappeared weeks ago. We thought they had killed him." "Then they didn't kill him," Blair replied. "Or worse, they bought him." Among the shadows of the cornfield, a man watched the house through a night vision binocular. In his ear, a headset. "She's here, and she's not alone." A cold voice answered on the other end of the line. "Don't leave witnesses." "We need to get out of here," Blair said, grabbing the old backpack. "They'll be back, and next time, they won't just be watching." Amelia tried to get up, leaning on his arm. "I know a place. It's safe, but we have to be quick." "Where?" "An old landing strip, in the middle of nowhere. Only me and my pilot knew about it. They won't find us there." Blair nodded. He packed the bag with food, water, medicine, the shotgun, and the solar charger. But before leaving, he looked back. The farm, the house where he grew up, the last inheritance from his father, the place he fought so hard to keep standing. Now he was leaving it all behind. "Promise me something," he said, looking at Amelia. "Of course. If we make it out alive, you'll tell me everything. No secrets." She stared at him. Even with pain, even with fear, there was a firm shine in her eyes now. "I promise." The night was darker than ever. No moon in the sky. Just the sound of the wind and Blair's quick steps as he helped Amelia into the old truck. He threw the backpack onto the back seat, started the engine. But the car wouldn't start. Come on," he muttered, turning the key again. Nothing. He opened the hood, ran to the front, and there it was. The battery cables had been cut. "They've been here," Blair said, eyes wide. Out of nowhere, a gunshot. The rear window shattered, sending shards across the seat. "Duck!" Blair shouted, throwing himself over Amelia. Outside, in the dark, 3 armed men emerged from the cornfield. All dressed in black, faces covered, moving silently like ghosts. They were surrounded. Blair grabbed Amelia, ran with her toward the back of the house, the shots exploding behind them, tearing through the air. They ran between barns, ducking, stumbling in the mud. He knew every inch of that place. That was their only advantage. They reached the barn. He kicked the door open and locked it from the inside. Inside, silence. They were both breathing heavily. "You okay?" he asked, looking at her bandage. Amelia nodded, sweating coldly. "They're trained, professionals. They won't give up." Blair walked over to an old hidden passage used years ago to store tools. "Come with me." They crawled through tight, muffled dirt tunnels which led directly to the fence at the back of the farm, an exit that no one from the outside knew about. And it worked. They made it out near the old tractor and managed to escape across the field, following a hidden trail that led them to the forest. The mercenaries entered the empty barn. The leader looked around. They escaped. Where to? Doesn't matter. They're bleeding, tired. They won't go far. He looked at the ground, picked up a piece of blood-soaked cloth. Let's hunt them down. The trail was narrow. Mud, wet leaves, branches slapping their faces. Blair carried Amelia, almost in his arms. She tried to be strong, but the pain was evident. "Leave me here," she murmured. "You can still run." Blair stopped. He looked her in the eyes. "I'm not leaving you. Never." Amelia tried to hold back her tears. There, in the middle of nowhere, she was no longer the untouchable millionaire from the magazines. She was just a wounded woman, vulnerable, grateful for someone fighting for her.
"Why are you helping me like this?" she asked, her voice faltering. Blair took a deep breath. "Because for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm fighting for something worth it." They stared at each other for a second, a silence filled with everything words couldn't express. But it didn't last. Barking, footsteps, distant voices. They had been tracked. "Run!" Blair pulled Amelia, pushing her deeper into the forest. After hours of running, climbing hills, and crossing almost impossible trails, they reached a hidden clearing. There it was, an old, small plane, covered with a tarp and leaves. "Is this your hiding spot?" Blair asked, surprised. "Yes, but we need fuel, and my pilot hasn't arrived yet." Blair looked around. "Then we'll have to hold our ground until he gets here." But the pilot was late, and the men in black were not far. The hunt wasn't over, and the next attack would be the most brutal of all. The night fell like a heavy veil. The forest was too quiet. No crickets, no wind. Just that silence, the kind of silence that screams danger. Blair and Amelia were hidden behind the covered plane. He had rigged a simple trap with wires, branches, and a shotgun attached to a tree. "You know how to use this?" he asked, handing Amelia a small pistol. She took it. Her hands trembled, but her gaze was steady. "I've been trained. Before the money, before the magazine covers, I was in the Air Force." Blair raised an eyebrow. "You sure are full of surprises." She flashed a quick smile, but the moment of lightness didn't last long. A snap, then another. Footsteps, the sound of boots crushing leaves.
They were coming. Blair pointed the shotgun and signaled for Amelia to crouch down. They were outnumbered, 2 against 5, but they were prepared. Boom! The trap was triggered. One of the mercenaries fell with a scream. Blair took advantage and fired, hit another. 2 down, he shouted. But the other 3 opened fire. The bullets sliced through the trees like knives. Blair rolled behind a trunk, pulling Amelia with him. "We need to flank them," she said. "If we stay here, they'll get us. Go behind, I'll cover." She ran low and Blair fired, distracting the enemies. One of them tried to reach her, but she reacted quickly, taking him down with a perfect shot. Now there were only 2 left. They hid, waiting for Blair and Amelia to move. But Blair had an idea. He grabbed a rock, threw it far away, making noise. The 2 mercenaries revealed themselves. Blair and Amelia fired at the same time. And then, everything went silent. The smell of gunpowder, burnt leaves, sweat, and fear hung in the air. They had won, but it wasn't over yet. A few minutes later, the lights of a helicopter cut through the dark sky. Amelia smiled, relieved. "It's him! It's Charlie!" The helicopter landed in the clearing. A man ran out. "Amelia, my God, you're alive!" They embraced. Blair relaxed, putting the shotgun away. But something felt off. The pilot didn't seem relieved. He seemed tense. And then Blair saw it. The radio on his waist. It was on, transmitting. "Amelia," he began to speak, but it was too late. Charlie pulled out a gun. "I'm sorry. They sent me to make sure you don't leave here alive." Bang! A shot echoed, but it wasn't Charlie who fired. It was Blair. The pilot collapsed on the ground, lifeless. Amelia froze. They paid him too," she whispered, her eyes filled with tears. Blair walked up to her, placing his hand on her shoulder. "Tell me everything, now." Amelia took a deep breath. She looked Blair in the eyes. "The truth is, I uncovered a billion-dollar corruption scheme. My own board was laundering money through military contracts. When I tried to confront them, they tried to kill me. I ran with the documents, but they tracked me down. They tried to sabotage my plane. And now,
They'll try to erase everything, including me. Blair remained silent for a moment. And you thought hiding this would protect you? She lowered her head. I thought it would protect you. He held her hand. Then now we face this together. They got on the helicopter. They took the evidence. They went straight to a military base out of state. And they reported everything. The news exploded across the country. Amelia was called a heroine, but she didn't want to return to her old life. She chose to go back to Oklahoma, to that farm, by Blair's side. And from there, they began a new story, together.